Hi everyone, this is Karak from ACG, and today I come to you with one hand on my recurve bow and one hand on my calcium pills as I bring you the review for Rise of the Tomb Raider Championship Shattered Shin Edition, or as normal people like to call it, the PC version. This is all the same stuff, including Laura's painful jumping, leaping, falling, sprawling, and yes, sometimes bawling action of the Xbox One version, but with the added benefit of an entire Sith army's unlimited power, if of course you have the gold coins and space in your PC case for it. Since this is a port review, you are going to hear me reference the main review from time to time. That's just something, unfortunately, that's going to happen. So let's see how it did, shall we? As always, if you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here's the review for Rise of the Tomb Raider on PC. Middle-earth archaeological dig sites, choking someone with a bow because obviously shooting them is stupid, and playing as Jill the Ripper pretending to be an explorer named Laura. As always, graphics are up first. When Rise came to the Xbox One, it was a push-pull of expectations and reality with a 30 frames per second target and an obviously more power-friendly expectation of a good-looking game that ran really well. Here on the PC, unless you're on like the low setting, you can crank this baby up and you're gonna see one of the wildest, most effects-laden graphics packages you've seen in a good long while, and an additional reminder why so many fans were excited by both its original release, but also this coming port. To say at times this looks fantastic is a complete understatement. Fire licks up the faces of enemies as you send them please burn in hell packages from afar, explosions rocket projectiles into the air like reverse fireworks, and pretty much everything within the game is coated with a fine sheen of post-processing effects, depth of field shenanigans, and so many layers of dust, debris, fog, steam, blood, and mud that it looks like the movie Gladiator. Rise simply looks amazing, and one of the standouts has to be the world itself. First, of course, a little bit about the destruction. Made with all the structural integrity of like Donald Trump's tenuous hold on reality, mixed with a little bit of that chip dust at the bottom of a Doritos bag, the world's destruction is both hilariously delightful to watch and also absolutely enjoyable to take part in or to take apart. As you explore, the world's entire structures disintegrate around you, throwing up massive clouds of debris and materials. Stone and mortar choke the air with every explosion or gunshot, and frankly, the world just falls the hell apart at every turn. It's glorious, and it's just next level interaction. Now, though most likely not up to the levels of the Uncharted series when it comes to that bombastic elements that game is so known for, the actual level design, majesty, and artistry of the world in Rise is phenomenal to behold. Whether you're investigating a frozen galleon stuck to the side of an iceberg or diving into the cool river near Rise of the Tomb Raider's rendition of Middle-earth, or even sitting back looking at the sun-baked remnants of an ancient city, Tomb Raider's design is just ace. I mean it. Dropping into the lower canyons and walking through the choking fogs of the steaming water pools was just a sight to behold, and it's one of many. Now, talking about animation for a second, it's the same as the Xbox One version, meaning it's absolutely stupendous, and in the end, the world and the character spend most of the game feeling integrated physically, which can't be said for many titles where enemies seem to jettison all connection to their worlds upon death. You know, throwing some dude with a compound bow never gets old, and it doesn't here in the game either. Flipping his body ass over tea kettle past his friends, or choking someone and letting their comatose body slip from the edge of a massive water tower, it gives you a very powerful visual impression of being in control and connected. I really love the animation in this game. Interestingly enough, while Laura comes to fruition as an adventure as the game continues, her animation, though amazing still, tells a uniquely clumsy story, and by the time you're done watching the credits, sometimes it can feel like you just got done watching The Naked Gun, with a character rolling, falling, missing, crashing, and bumbling their way to victory with nothing but a case of rickets and 2 weeks worth of bruises. I just wish there was a bit more control visualized in her acrobatics at times, especially as this is the more confident character in a sequel. Unfortunately, not all is right in the Land of the Lost Laura edition. This thing is unoptimized at best. On an i7 5820K at 4.4 and a GTX 980, this thing gave me anywhere from 60 frames a second to 30 frames a second during gameplay at 1080p settings on very high. Absolutely unacceptable frame rate for what's going on. Without warning, it would lose a third or more of its frames, especially in snowy weather. And the only way to really get it stable at 60 frames per second was to set the settings down to medium or even lower. Hey, while we're at it, let's just buy a Corvette and put a damn lawnmower engine in it. Seriously, it was all over the place, and it didn't make sense, and it was really disappointing. I've had better luck guessing lotto numbers than understand what was actually going on in this game. It took me a long time to sort of look at what was impacting those frame rates. So I figured, you know what, that's the high-power computer. Let's get the slightly lower one and just see what happens. It's the same CPU, but a GTX 680. The less said, the better about the frame rates. Let's just say that 15 isn't just the number of ex-fiancés I have. Playing with the settings indicated that the draw distance was the biggest factor, especially in those snowy areas and looking out over long distances. And of course, HBAO+, shadows, and level of detail were the largest obligatory offenders. But make no mistake, it's not running on all cylinders in any way, shape, or form. And this is actually patched up and ready to go for release. As a package, I would say it's playable, but to get even a locked 30 frames per second, you might find the hardware demands higher than you initially expected. So moving on from there to sound, music, and voice.
Made it, Dad.
Keep running! Go! Run her down!
And sound is up first. This has the same overall phenomenal soundscape as the original, and with cavernous echoing caves, deep dark mines, and wind whipping across the top of mountain passes all perfectly replicated. That also means the guns continue to be completely anemic, with the automatic rifle sounding more like a muffled popcorn popper than any kind of firearm. And don't even get me started on the supposedly powerful handguns. I do more damage yelling 1980s rock band names at enemies than these things sound like they would actually do. It's absolutely disappointing that this hasn't been shored up in the meantime, especially since that Xbox One release was a while ago. Though as always, the shotgun sort of continues to delight with a fairly heady low end. But let's be honest, that's probably just because it sounds okay against the other weapons, which sound horrid. Music. The same excellence of Phil McGowan continues here, a discreet and depthy affair with the orchestra. He really nailed it with this game. It's epic, sure, but at times while adventuring, there's also this subtle vibe that crops up, and whether it's an ambient piano or the absolutely mad dash skin section he has railing around when you're in a gun battle, locations are tied with their scores really well, though as I said, with the Xbox One version, transitions are still sometimes odd, resulting in one hilarious moment where the stick in front of me was apparently about to do something frigging amazing. At least the music thought it was going to. Altogether, though, I love the soundtrack with special kudos to some of those songs that layered during the challenge tombs, which were straight up airy woodwind awesome. That's always just been one of my favorite instruments to go with exploratory gameplay. Voice. Camilla Luddington has grown on me as Miss Croft. I wasn't a huge fan of her work in the past game, but here there are times, especially in some of the amazingly well-paced and crafted cutscenes, where I forgot I was watching a game, and the characters interacted via camera to viewer, just like a TV show or a movie, versus that almost imperceptible but still there filter of knowing it's a game. She handles the character with a deft and grace that I actually really enjoyed. Now this helps with the absolutely insane situations that are presented, and you have Laura and some other character yelling at one another during a heated gun battle, and it's not that typical witty banter expected in games where most main characters pretend they walk around with cannonballs between their legs. Instead, it's a bit more grounded than that. Earl Balon rocks it as Jonah as always, and the bad guy's side is led by the Inferno duo, the Wonder Twins of crazy ideas, led by the actor who's playing Constantine, whose voice actor does his best to channel Clancy Brown, who played the Kurgan in Highlander. I really thought it was him for a while. I'd just say as a package, all the voices are excellent, and the surrounding cast does nothing but elevate the already increased professionalism and prowess that I think Camilla has as the lead character now in this sequel. Gameplay. Listen, it's Tomb Raider, so you're probably going to be Tomb Raidering, and when you're not doing that, you're probably going to be killing stuff. As you progress in the story and explore, you find campfires, which become bases you can use to fast travel to any other campfires you found. When not hanging out making s'mores, Laura's exploring mysteries vast and taking in the main quest. So let's talk about story for a second. Miss Croft has seen some shit. At the end of the last Tomb Raider game, she saw something that has her questioning everything, and she's decided to track down the answers to these unsolved mysteries. At the same time, she tries to fend off the increasingly hilarious attacks of the evil maniacal group known as Trinity. By hilarious, I mean, at some point they seem to have realized that they can't have all the bullets, so they just seem to have an unlimited number of foot soldiers to briskly be sent skipping into rifle fire. During all this, Laura travels to mysterious places, but spends most of her time doing one of two things. One, which is altering National Geographic's future documentary plans by single-handedly shattering, smashing, slicing, dicing, crushing, collapsing, and burning down all ancient architecture she comes into contact with. And two, trying to see if it's possible for one human to effectively wipe out an entire continent's animal life like a damn T1 asteroid impact. Now, first up when it comes to exploring, Control is spot on, and the hesitation and input lag that bothered some people with the Xbox One version is much closer to the Xbox 360's version here, though the sadly unoptimized frame rate can indeed put you in into fits from time to time, especially when attempting quick turns and jumps while the earth crumbles around you. Combat is still very fun, and though it's not as deep as some action games, for a pseudo-open world game it really fits perfectly, and there's an organic chemistry between the level design, enemy AI, and combat that allows you to move quickly but not easily from engagement to engagement, and a smart player can usually use flexibility in weapons and secondary weapon functionalities to get through most battles without an insane amount of difficulty. AI is acceptable to excellent depending on the makeup of the level and the difficulty that you've chosen, and though their tactics are pretty much solidly flank and shoot point blank, their use of additional items like grenades and other flushing weapons will remind you just how much you in turn need to use them as well. What's so special here, though, is that layered pacing out of enemy interactions, which allows for Rise to carry a momentum with it that is wonderful, and even when you step off the beaten path to explore, getting back on board the main story feels like it's this most natural thing ever to do, and that there's almost no time lost. It's a very unique feeling in this title. Also, while exploring, Laura uncovers mysteries continually via audio tapes because, as we know, they existed thousands of years ago. That being said, they are pretty cool, and different ones tell different stories about various historical situations and game events. She also collects loot, and as any absolute ass would do, she sells it to a guy to buy guns and other upgrades in the Siberian black market. But by doing all this and exploring these places, these are locations and worlds worth investigating. Secret coves, twisting caverns, and almost labyrinth-like layers of ancient history await you as you play. And though I enjoyed the main story, it was the exploration of the world and the open world light style gameplay here that offered me the majority of my enjoyment. Now, while luckily Laura lives off a fine layer of fat she has hidden somewhere on her body like a camel, that doesn't mean she lets animal life go to waste just living, loving, and mating. Oh no. As I said, killing critters supplies her with all manner of created items and craftable goodies, which she can make whenever she returns to camp. Quivers, straps, pouches, you name it. Basically, if she can build it, someone from the Bambi cartoon is going to end up biting the dust. At the campfires, she can also level up, and sometimes she ruminates on the current ridiculousness of the situation that she's found herself in. Leveling sees you placing points into various skill trees, of which there are 3, and they raise skills like soaking damage, creating items, or doing special moves, and they have some little, I think, somewhat ridiculous requirements for going up in other sections, where you have to spend a certain amount in one tree to then get another tree. It's sort of weird. It's all fairly bog standard, though, and one thing I did like is, regardless of my desire to see some of those restrictions go away, the impact of those skills that are purchased are felt pretty dramatically right away. It's here where you also realize the curve of gameplay and leveling up is almost perfect, and though I am still not a fan of the presentation of the level up system, which seems oddly disconnected from the reality-based aspects of the other parts of the game, it's very deep, and players can explore with some really different paths when you think about it. There's just a little bit more maturity in this title than there was in the past one. While the prior game was really a crucible of character and an exploratory telling of just how much violence you can throw at a character before they start speaking in tongues, Rise of the Tomb Raider is more old style, and though it never hesitates to throw hellacious amounts of action your way, in the guise of everything from pissed off mama bears to legions of wolves to rip off Nazis, in the end, it's still about tomb spelunking for special spoils, and that's where Rise really shines. Fun factor. Oh man, I'm going to be honest, it's still a damn blast, but one that is now really questionably flawed from a technical standpoint. Within a couple minutes of playing, I was once again cackling to myself as Laura proceeds to enter a location and then kick the shit out of everything inside this ancient location like she has a vendetta against pottery. Even so, as you're exploring and seeing these amazing sights, you're also engaged in a pretty good story backed up by actors that have a bit more subtlety than the prior title. And whether you're going on side missions for random NPCs or leveling up or taking on a main mission, I was always interested in where it was going, despite having already played it all the way through on the console. But the performance, it's abysmal, and there's no guarantee that people will be able to run this at a good frame rate with the effects that they want unless they have a really powerful system. It's just not optimized well, and after talking to somebody else who has it, they're seeing the same thing. It suffers tremendously for it. A variable frame rate really is the devil when you think about it, and going from 60 to 35 was punishing on both control and on my eyes. It's just really not pretty. That being said, it certainly seems patchable. So, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or on a PC, deep sale, and of course the never touch it again rating scale. This is a wait for sale. That's right, people. With the sour taste of Batman still in the mouths of, I think, many gamers, I suggest people wait. And it's certainly not that some people won't be able to run it and some people won't be able to run it well. It's that it's questionable to a higher level than it should be of what performance you're going to get as an average. Buying a game should really be somewhat mundane when it comes to understanding its overall average performance. And yet when playing Rise, there were times, and this is coming from somebody who plays a boatload of PC games, where I was really looking at this title and wondering what was going on. It just seemed like it was having all kinds of problems in performance. Anyway, that's it for me. Hope you guys liked the video. If you did, hit a thumbs up. Maybe come to Reddit. Maybe check out our Patreon. If you didn't, thumbs down. As always, peace out.